There we go. Okay. Hello again, welcome. My name is Jackie Latzer, and on behalf of the Diversity Committee of Lake Sumter branch of the American Association of University Women, AAUW, I want to welcome you this morning. AAUW has been advocating for women and girls since 1881. We address issues of gender equity in the workplace, in education, in economic security, and great advocacy. And additionally, the Lake Sumter branch, established over 40 years ago, provides scholarships to local women and girls. And we, of course, are involved in issues of justice and gender in state and national, on the state and national level. So this is our sixth in the discussion series. And today we're going to be discussing microaggressions. We applaud you for being here today. And for those of you who are here for the first time and for those who have been here in the past, racism is a disease and it's affected and wounded all of us. This past year, we've been dealing with the COVID virus, but the disease of racism has been festering in our country for over 400 years. So we celebrate and appreciate your joining us as we journey together in a culture of learning. We by no means see ourselves as experts in this subject. We, as you, have a desire to learn more so that we can do the internal and external work of addressing and rooting out racism in our thoughts, attitudes, behaviors, and environment. So let's see what we're going to be covering in today's program. Okay, what we will be doing, we're going to be talking about New Year's resolutions regarding racism. We'll then get to our main topic on microaggressions, after which we'll go into breakout rooms so that you'll have a chance to really discuss this in depth. We'll come back to our large discussion to hear about what you all have discussed and learned and shared. We'll have some polling questions, and then we will wrap up. So when the new year rolls around, many of us put together a set of resolutions. So in addition to the usual ones like, I want to lose more weight, I need to exercise more, I should meditate, whatever. And in that spirit of making New Year's resolutions, at December session, we suggested coming up with a resolution with regard to racism. I wonder if some of you might share any of those resolutions that you thought about. No mechanical hands? Okay, well, you know what? It's not too late. We're still in January, and we can always make a resolution to address this issue.
Jackie, I see.
Jackie, we've got lots of hands up.
Wonderful. Okay, I was a little quick on the draw, so, okay.
Ginny, you need to unmute. You're first.
I think I just did.
Yeah, you did now. You're good to go.
Okay. I thought a lot about this, Linda, and I've been talking to you a little bit over the internet about I don't know what to do. Whenever I see people in the villages who look different from me, I want to run up and hug them and say, I am so glad you're here. But I don't see people, I don't do it because I'm not sure it would be welcome. And I don't know what to do. I've lived in a white silo all my life. That's all.
Well, that's honest. And I think that'll be something that will be very interesting to discuss. Perhaps we'll do it in the breakout rooms, or we might have a response from someone.
I'd be interested in what anyone has to say.
Okay, let's keep that in mind. Thank you, Ginny, for being so open. Judy Bond.
Hi. Mine is sort of similar to Ginny's, but a little bit different too. My resolution was just to learn more, because I'm one of those who sees somebody with, especially Black women, with those beautiful braided hairdos that are just drop dead gorgeous, and I want to tell them how much I think their hair is beautiful. And now I'm beginning to see that they might get upset if I do that. Oh, I want to learn how to get along, I guess, is basically what I mean. I mean, if I think that Jackie, for example, or Ginny has a beautiful hairdo, I'll tell her and she'll say thank you. But now I'm afraid to say anything if the person doesn't look like me. So I have a lot of learning to do, and that's what I intend to do.
I'm curious if anyone has a thought about that before we go. Again, appreciate so much the candor with which you're sharing these things. I know I have a thought, but I'm just curious if anyone has. Suzanne Young, I think you raised your hand, even though, yeah, just if you would respond, if you're responding.
So to Judy, I'd say that African American women appreciate a compliment. I mean, so I wouldn't be afraid to say that, you know, I certainly did when my hair was longer. I think in a lot of this newness for people, we're becoming like now we're afraid to do anything. I think whatever would be good, if you are complimenting somebody, a compliment's a compliment. I don't care who it's coming from. The thing that I can say that African American women have issues with is for you to, if you said, "Can I touch your hair?" Now that would be a problem. But a compliment is not a problem. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Suzanne. Anyone else want to just respond? Because again, this is a discussion and we're all wanting to learn.
Jackie, I can't tell who wants to make a comment and
Right.
who
Okay,
wants to
let's
be in
do
the
a
queue.
quick. I
Can't find me. I raised my hand. I do want to make a comment.
Good.
Thanks,
Thank
Johnny.
you, Johnny.
I guess I have an old Zoom. Hello, I'm Johnny Perry, and I would just like to say, as you see, maybe I do have dreadlocks, and I get compliments all the time in my community in the River County from white people, particularly women, that tell me they like my hair. And when that first happened to me, as I began to grow my hair out, I was astonished, like, oh, okay, you really appreciate my hair. Because as I grew up in the 70s and 80s, it was like taboo to wear your hair like this in the corporate world. So I never considered wearing my hair as such. And now that I'm older and just finding myself and in my own authentic truth, you know, I love my hair. So to say and give that compliment, I think it would be appreciated. And like the person before me, I didn't give her name. If you want to touch my hair, that may be a little different depending on the context, you know, that is said in, but a compliment is fine. And I also want to say, when you see someone of color, particularly an African-American woman or man, just be who you are. You know, if you feel like you want to express a smile or some love, it's felt. And we know, I know I do, that it's genuine or not. just like people may shun me or whatever, I can feel that energy too. And I know when that space is not welcome or whatever the case is. So just be your authentic self, and that love, that's what we need in I think right now in our America, that we exhume this love energy and kind energy to each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Anyone else want to say something? Please just unmute yourself and jump in. We really appreciate it. I'm so glad this is already so wonderful.
I would
Go
like to express myself, but when I first came into the room for my video, the woman that was saying her issue today was to control herself. This is also my issue. So I'm trying to be really brief. And the picture I have behind me is a Native American petroglyph, and it's called "She Who Watches." So this is my challenge today. I'm trying to be she who watches, but I want to express my appreciation that we're not just white people in the room, and especially in this discussion, because it makes it sound like the innocent, sincere things that we say to people who don't know us at all, and want to say a compliment is not a compliment when we're really intending it to be a compliment. Or let's say what Jenny said, I want to hug you. Am I allowed to hug you? You know, it's like, well, some people literally don't want to be touched. Okay, but that's maybe not the issue. It's like she wants to express her love and appreciation, her gratitude that you're in the room with her. And for me, this discussion on microaggression is hard to think that my sincere compliment or my meaning is being dictated to me, a person you don't even know.
Okay, so we see that we have good intentions, depending on where they're coming from. What I think I understand too was, if it's coming from our heart, that's translated. What is our motive, right? If you find that when you talk to anyone, if you see someone and you tell any stranger, you compliment them, then it's just another stranger who's really a friend. I think, if I may, this idea of singling someone out because they're a person of color and then making a point of it, perhaps that could be a little of an ouchie. I see Suzanne is shaking her head. Hopefully we've captured that. But I think hopefully we're here because we want to learn, we want to get better. None of us wants to hurt another soul. So again, we put our foot in our mouth, all of us at some time, whatever, we don't want to have our feet in our mouths anymore. We want them firmly planted on the ground. So is there anyone else before we move on? And again, appreciate so much your honesty and openness. We'll hear Arlene and then Chuck Singleton. Arlene Stein, if you would.
Mute. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. When I was hearing about the hairdos, I started to laugh because I had the reverse. I mean, I have very curly hair, and I used to teach elementary school, and the children kept wanting to touch my hair because I had hair like theirs, but softer. And mine was, I just laughed all the time. I thought that was the cutest thing going. But I was always envious of the curly hair that I just wanted to know what products they used, how to get my hair like their hair, because their hair would always look like it was so perfect. My hair wind blew and my curls were all over the place. I looked like a lion. So I had the reverse, and I just enjoyed every minute of it. I know how you all felt with touching the hair, because I sometimes go back also if it was an adult, but because it was a child, I let them touch my hair. So I know where you're coming from, but I really understand it. A compliment is a compliment. It's great. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Arlene. Chuck Singleton.
My comment is very short, and I won't be talking about hair. The thing that struck me as we were talking about touching hair and complimenting on hair and all is, did you say hello? And I use the phrase, just say hello. And that usually softens the other person to the point that the discussion can go where it might go after that. But if you just walk up and say, I like your hair, or I like your dress, or I like your whatever, I personally get a little suspicious. But if you say hello first, then it just breaks the ice.
Thank you. That's, I'm jotting these down. I hope you are too. Okay.
Can I say something else?
Please.
This is Johnny. I want to say something else about the hair that came to mind when the person was talking. Something you need to know. As a Black person, we were taught that our hair was not good. It was ugly. It was nappy. And if someone had longer hair and appeared to be more straighter, they had good hair, and they had hair like white people. This is what my world was growing up. So for me to begin to grow my hair in what you call dreadlocks, it meant something to me with my self-esteem and with myself, because I was saying that, oh yes, my hair is beautiful and it is good enough. But that was something that was taboo. Oh, you know, Black people, we have ugly hair, we have nappy hair. And we wanted to get our hair to look like white people hair. And that's what all the straightening was all about. So I think that's something you probably should know that was a part of our culture.
Jackie, can I tag on to
Thank you.
Johnny's comment real quick, please?
Go ahead, Linda.
There is on Netflix a documentary called Good Hair. The host is Chris Rock, and he travels around the world exploring this notion of good hair or bad hair or hair. And it's educational, also entertaining. But it for those of you who question that particular aspect of microaggression, that documentary is really very helpful.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Linda. I think we have a few people that have
Carolyn
raised their
Deal
hand.
has her hand up, and she has
Yeah.
been waiting patiently, but
Yeah.
in response to your initial question, Jackie, about resolutions.
Resolutions.
Carolyn, where are you?
Hi,
Yes,
I
dear.
have joined your group as a result of listening to another thing about diversity for the AUW. I'm actually the public policy chair for the Wilmington, Delaware branch. And so what I'm participating is just learning sort of what you all are doing, you know, in the Lake Sumter area, and just how can we take some of those things and implement them in the Wilmington branch. I've been a member for more than 30 years when I moved to Delaware to take a job here. And our branch is almost completely white, even though the Wilmington area is a fairly diverse area. So it's really something that we need to work on. And the vast majority of our members are 70 or older. So that's another thing that we've been struggling with. So I just was wanting to let you know that I'm on here, and I just want to learn, what you can do. But I did grow up in Southern Ohio, which was, as I would say, lily white. There was 1 or 2 Black kids in my entire high school. So, but I've lived out on the East Coast since 1986. So I have, lived in a more diverse environment, worked in a more diverse environment. So
We appreciate it. I don't mean to interrupt, but I do mean to interrupt and we thank you. We're so glad you're here. We do want to address, though, if you've had some resolutions that you'd like to share, because then we're going to have to move on. So
yeah, actually, I didn't. Yeah, so I'll just mute now. So that's all I want to share at this point. So
okay, Karen Sawhill. Karen?
Yeah, I was having trouble unmuting. Thank you, Jackie. Yeah, I don't usually do New Year's resolutions, but I did because every time I got an email from you all, uh, it would say, remember to let us know about your New Year's resolution. So I did make I wanted to make an action step. I've been doing a lot of educational things for the last 10 months. It's really good. I've learned a lot. Um, maybe I'm a little more sensitive. I don't know. Who knows? But I wanted an action step beyond education. And so I'm in the fourth week of a course. It's called Our Moral Imperative, Teaching White People to be Cycle Breakers to work for racial equity. And it's about changing behavior. And the idea is to be a cycle breaker, you have to know who you are and what it is you're doing that is causing a problem. And how do we take action? And I'm really excited about the course. It's specifically for white people, and because we have a power that is not being utilized because of this idea of silence. So I'm excited about that. I'm scared about it most days because it requires a fair amount of stepping forward and or stepping off the edge. So anyway, that was mine. Thanks.
Thank you. Action steps. We can't just, that's wonderful. And maybe you'll shoot some of that information over to me later, Karen, if you would, okay? And maybe we can share that. All right, we're going to need to be brief. We have a bunch of people that still want to speak, and I'm so glad, and we have so much to get to. So Suzanne Young Mercer.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's probably that hand's still up from before. So
okay. Great. Thanks.
My error.
Shar Griffin.
Am I unmuted? There I am.
Yes.
I would like to join an organization that is racially diverse, because I think the best way to make a difference is to have friends. And the way I make friends is through organizations. And I've been looking for something like that for some time. Maybe AAUW is getting there, but any suggestions about an organization that maybe is working towards racial justice? I've signed up with some things online, but once I get my vaccines and I can actually meet with people in person, any suggestions about organizations? I'd be looking forward to it.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense, and that's a great idea. I think certainly because where we live is very white. Thank you. So we're just going to collect ideas now, and thank you. We can put those, and again, if we have ideas, we saw some are coming up on chats, so we appreciate that. SB.
Oh, hi. I'm just dying to go to share my experience as the other person who looks different from you. The first questions that was raised is I'm on the other end. So what I would suggest is says, hi, my name is so-and-so. I'd like to meet you. How does that sound? And then maybe a conversation would start and you get to know one another and that kind of thing. So that is, for me, I think that's one way to overcome. You look different and I'd like to find out who you are type of thing. My name is so-and-so, I'd like to meet you. Now, in terms of New Year's resolution, I have resolved that I would be more, I think, I would be more outgoing in terms of expanding my sphere of influence type of thing. Sometimes personally I encounter it, some of those questions are a little, I think, microaggression that I'm learning it now. where do you, when you answer, where are you from? Obviously, because I look different, and tell them I've been from Canada. That's the last place I've been. No, I mean, where? So I knew the question is trying to find out where I was. You mean where? Oh, no. So, sometimes I really go down deep. Where were you born? That one, I feel that is not being friendly or being, there's behind it, so to speak. And in terms of those hair, I find it, I think with not much of my hair, unlike the curly ones that you certainly get a lot of admiration for it. But I think it's a little too personal when you say, can I touch your hair? I know you really love it. It becomes like it is boundary, you know, you're kind of getting into my boundary. Just take it easy. Let's get to know one another type of thing. Maybe in the future, you might want to touch my hair. That's all that I can feel like sharing.
Okay, thank you very much, SB. So if we could just right now, because a few of you still want to speak, let's see if we can focus it on your resolution. I know we're big into the hair right now, but if we could see if we could share those resolutions. So Lynn Hunter.
Yeah, and I had my hand up when we were talking about the hair, and I don't know that I could really add anything to it. It had to do with sincerity versus curiosity. So I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Sharon Squires.
Yeah, hi. I had something quite simple. I had resolved to read the book Cast, White Fragility, John Lewis's Good Trouble, and there's I think it's a 4 or 6 part documentary called Up from Slavery, and I'd like to watch that. It was I watched the first part and it was quite good, so I want to finish it up. So
Okay, thank you. Very specific. So if you maybe we're getting ideas from each other. Thanks so much. We appreciate it. Lisa Beavers.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to say hi. One idea was I was on a Zoom meeting and there were people telling me how they're all isolated. They don't have anyone and they love the Zoom meeting. Well, I chatted them up and afterwards said, hey, if you ever want to talk, just interact with me. I would love to meet you and get to know you, since we don't have during this pandemic. But one other thing I've been focused as a resolution this year is I hold interfaith devotionals every Saturday, and I'm making specific efforts, especially with quotes that inspire from Martin Luther King or all the different religions. But I've been doing devotionals on racial justice, racial healing, and then racial unity, because I think we have to have it in that order. So I've been doing it, and I'm really enjoying the group discussion even that comes from afterwards. So that, and also maybe a race amity type of event for here in the villages. I'm hoping that this year we can complete that too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Nancy Hutchins. Oh, looks like Nancy stepped away. Gail Holland. Oh, there. Wait.
Hello. Oh,
okay. Go ahead, Gail, and then we'll try.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Gail Holland. I'm the program director for the St. Augustine branch of AAUW, and we were talking about listening to different people's ideas, and we're having a program on the 11th of February, and we have speakers, Dee Israel, she's a member, and Miss Phillips, who is a representative of the Lincolnville Museum that we have in downtown St. Augustine. And she's going to be talking about the past, the present, and the future of Lincolnville. And I think if you're interested, please contact, you can go on our website, and Karen Hayes, I see Karen is with us today, so we can send you an invite to this meeting. It's on February 11th, and I think you will enjoy it.
Gail, what time will that be? Do you know?
It will be at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Perhaps you can put that into the chat.
Okay, will do.
Thank you so much. Again, okay, so let's go back to, again, we're trying to address our resolutions. Ms. Nancy Hutchins, please.
My friend Kay is also on this call, or whatever you want to call it, webinar, and I are the Inclusion and Equity chairs for Missouri. And we've been doing a book called Waking Up White. Today is our last meeting, and we're going to decide where we want to go from there. So we meet like every 3 weeks, and we have questions and discussions. And Kay and I are also taking a class called the Arrest Project, which has been very interesting about the history of African Americans in the United States. It goes all the way back before colonial times. It's a 6-month course, and Thursday we will graduate and know how much more we need to know.
Okay, well, thank you. You know, if some of you have these other things that you're studying or attending to broaden your knowledge, or steps you're taking that are action steps, if you wouldn't mind, please either put it on the chat, or we're going to put up our email address. And if you would please share those, because that's part of what this is about. We want to learn from one another. I think as I talk about us being flowers of one garden, it's like cross-pollination. So thank you very, very much. Gina Weber.
Hi, good morning. Quickly, my resolution was to put my money where my mouth was, or where my brain, my thoughts were. So I've gone out and tried to identify businesses that are owned by Black people or people of color in our area. And then I've also, my son and daughter-in-law, or son and my daughter are both, we're kind of spread out along the West Coast now. And so they've been identifying particularly people that are online, such that I could purchase from them things that I was interested in. I think the economic support is really important.
Thank you. Very nice. So we've gotten some good ideas, I think, and we've certainly had some rich discussion. So thank you all so very much. You know, if nothing else, and we've learned a lot, the fact that we're here today is certainly a good start. One of the things that some of us have chosen to do, and many of you have mentioned it, is to be reading books about racism. And in previous discussions, as has come up this morning, we've mentioned a number of the books, and one of the participants asked if we could put together a book list or a reading list. And so we did put that together, and thank you, Linda Carpenter, for naming it. We called it Great Reads About Racism. So we have sent that out, but if you're interested, we can resend that to you. As a matter of fact, we're looking to, shortly, we're going to be making additions to that list. So if you have some suggestions of list of books are not on there, we'd be happy to include them on that book list and then eventually send it to everyone. And that is going to be, if you would send it to our email, divcomaaw@gmail.com. And maybe Linda, you can just stick that in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to show it at the end of this presentation. But please, any suggestions, if you have books that are not on that list, send them to us again, because this is a place where we're sharing and learning from one another. Whew, okay, so that was rich. And now it's time, maybe we're going to take a look at our main topic today, which is microaggressions. So most of us have an idea from what our conversation is, but let's all be on this page together about what a microaggression is. Microaggression is a term used for brief and commonplace verbal, behavioral, or environmental indignities that communicate, hostile, derogatory, or negative prejudicial slights and insults toward any group. So we actually, we have heard some of those. I think a couple of them were mentioned, but some of the other examples might be something like, oh, you don't talk like you're Black, or could be a comment like, oh, if I would have known it was you, I wouldn't have locked my door. Or some of us might remember if you attended our session on post-traumatic slave syndrome when Dr. Joy DeGruy shared her experience when she was in the grocery store and she was trying to check out, and she was singled out where the clerk pulled out a list and wanted to check if she was a bad credit risk or not. These are microaggressions, and in that case, she was lucky she had allies who spoke up. So let's take a look at what is that. Give me a moment. They seem to have just a moment, please. It's disappeared, but we're going to get it back if you give me a moment. There we are.
There we go.
So if you've received this material, you've looked at this, but let's take a look at it. When these things take place, these microaggressions that we are talking about, there are targets, and targets are the marginalized group members who are objects of racial, gender, or sexual orientation prejudice and discrimination expressed through microaggressions. Those are the targets. What about the bystanders? Well, bystanders are those who witnessed something taking place. Some of people are oblivious totally that there's been a microaggression. Others may have noticed it and feel kind of uncomfortable. Maybe they just don't know what to do or don't say anything. And then we have the allies. The allies are individuals who belong to the dominant social group, and through their support of non-dominant groups, work actively towards the eradication of prejudicial practices they witness in both their personal and professional lives. So as some of you have mentioned, and it's come up before, there's that question of, well, what do? I don't know how to handle it. So we have here some strategies. If we want to move toward being allies, and we know most of us here are white, and that, as we've learned, we have white privilege. So let's use it in a constructive way. So here are some strategies. And again, you've seen them, but they're worth us taking a look at. One of the things we can do is to interrupt. We might say, excuse me, can I just clarify what I think I hear? Or hold on, can we go back to what you just called the virus? Or just a second, let's discuss the point that the virus is somebody's fault. Or else, before we continue, I want to talk about the language you just used. So perhaps this is one time when interrupting is polite. Another strategy might be asking a question. After hearing something, you might say, well, why do you feel that way? Or what made you say that? Where did you get that information? Were the facts validated? Why do you think some people may find what you said inappropriate or harmful? Have you considered the implications of your actions or your words? That's the questioning strategy. Another strategy would be to educate. And you might say, I'd like to share a different perspective, or let me share my personal experiences. And actually, we heard some of that in our earlier conversation, which was so rich. You might share, here's what I know about the historical impact. Or we might share data, facts, personal experiences, not necessarily meant to convince, but as a means to help someone think differently. Or here, this strategy of echoing, where we already see that there's an ally standing up for someone else, and we want to amplify that and let them know that we are not complicit in that microaggression. We might say, thanks for saying something, or You know, I agree with that, and let me add. So again, we wanted to know some strategies, and those are some suggestions. You all have copies of them, so you can certainly go back to refer to them and put them into our own words. So these are things we can think of. I'm sure there's many other ways we can do it, but again, for some of us, this could be the starting point, and it's helpful to have a little bit of an idea of what we might do if we're in a situation. So we are going to go and break into breakout rooms in a second, in a few minutes. But if we could, we're just going to go over again a couple of how-tos to get into those. So let's do that now. Now, we're going to go into our breakout rooms, and before we do, we have a few discussion questions that we'd like you to consider and use as the basis for those discussions. And here are the suggested areas we'd like you to discuss. Share microaggressions you've observed in yourself or others, or that you've experienced. How did you respond? And perhaps now, how might you respond differently? How would you respond as a target, as a bystander, as an ally? And any reflection on a microaggression that you may have committed. Listening now, sometimes some of those might come to your mind. So what we're going to do now is then go into our breakout rooms and good.
We're back.
Okay, well, welcome back, everyone. We hope that you've enjoyed these discussions, and we'd love to hear your takeaways from the discussions. So again, we're going to do the raise your hand, mechanical raise your hand feature. So if you would, we would love to hear what you have to share, things you learned, your aha moments, whatever it is. Let's also keep in mind to, maybe no more than 2 minutes if we can, although we'll do what we can. Let's hear what you have to share. So the floor is yours. Raise those mechanical hands.
Jackie, I can't raise my hand. Well, wait a minute. We've got hands coming up. I will now be quiet. We have
Sharon Edwards.
Sharon Edwins.
Edwins.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. I think I shared in our small group an experience I've had recently here in the villages. But I think the bottom line is I'm concerned and worried that I may have some of the leftovers of the last 400 years of that. I listened to a woman talk about the years that we've learned how to practice prejudice in our system, and we talked about it here in our lectures. But I'm still trying to get away from those. I worry that I have them and I haven't identified them. And as I listened to one lady give a speech about prejudice, and she said, or I guess our people said, I think it was Linda Carpenter. No, I guess she's among very elite people. But anyway, it said, think or pause before you say something. Maybe think about how it will be taken rather than just talk out. That's my thing. I want to take a moment, think about what I'm going to say and do, and include my sisters and brothers, no matter where they're from, originally or recently. And that's kind of where I have come from after the last sessions and this session.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Sharon. Aletta Wilson.
Is the microphone on? Microphone. Yes, hello, everybody. This is Clay Wilson. Alita is my wife. Hello, everybody.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you. I was in room number 1 with some very energetic people, and a couple of points about microaggression. How can biases change in the future? And my question is, will responses that we talked about in this session actually help someone who's a self-confirmed bigot? I don't know. The next question I have is, when we look at somebody, why is someone Black? For example, Obama, Tiger Woods, and Kamala all have non-Black parents, and they're called Black in this country. And so my question is, do we have the same level of discrimination in this country or in other countries that we have in this country? I don't think so. This country is special because of our history, and we need to work on education. I suggested, in addition to a month devoted to Black studies, that we have some month devoted to white studies. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. That's a lot to think about. Aletta, do you want to add anything to that? No. Okay. All right. Okay.
Unmute, Aletta.
Got it.
There she is.
I wanted to talk about how when Obama was elected, I'm almost embarrassed to say that I thought that was an indication that finally the United States was getting over this racist society that we have. And then right behind Obama, then we have Trump come in, and that says to me, I was so wrong. So yeah, 50% of the population apparently agrees with the Trump ideology. That makes me very, very sad about this country. That's it.
So thank you. Yes, we do have a lot of work to do. And I think for the people who are here, I think it at least is a positive thing to see that we have so many people here willing and wanting to make a difference, to work on themselves, and then make those changes and work outside of ourselves. We certainly appreciate your comment. SB.
Oh, hi. On our group, I learned something from one of the members in the group who shared that in her community, so it's a small community, I can't remember exactly what, but anyway, what I remember is a Black lady was in the supermarket looking around, I think looking for her friend. And this white woman came to her, says, "Oh, welcome, we'd love to have more people like you in here." So that was a very welcoming, warm, and it sounds like sincere thing to say to somebody who looks different from her. And then she was, "Okay, can I help you? I'm looking for my friend," but she qualified it. "My friend is not Black, my friend is a white woman." But I think what I learned from that, if you say something welcoming like that, it would open up the people of different colors and what have you.
Thank you, SB. I'm curious about that. I know I had a reaction to it. I'm going to just jump aside. Are there anybody? Thank you really for sharing that. And again, not to judge. I'm just as a learning opportunity. Did anyone have a kind of a reaction to that, even though the person was being welcoming? Were they being welcoming?
Jackie, I was the one that brought that up. I'm Debbie from Port Townsend, Washington. And the Black woman that heard that she was addressed to, she thought it was inappropriate, but she knew that it was from the woman's heart and that she wasn't being aggressive. And so she kind of let it slide, but I think Johnny had mentioned earlier that you can tell when someone's coming from your heart. And so she was surprised by it, but she knew it was coming from a good place.
Jackie,
But I
can
don't, I'm not sure it was totally appropriate.
Can I kind of make a comment here?
Yes,
please?
Linda.
One of the things that I've been reading of late points out the distinction between intention and impact. You may be the most good-hearted person on the planet and still have something hurtful and painful come out of your mouth. So I think it was Sharon Edwins who said, wasn't this something that we all learned as kids? Think before you speak.
Absolutely.
You know, just stop for a minute and realize that what you think is kind-hearted and may well be, may not be received that way. So that thinking before you speak is an important lesson, I think, for many of us to learn.
You know, that
Go
I'm
ahead, Judy.
sorry. I'm really sorry to interrupt, but that opens up a huge beehive of questions that went through
And it
my
does,
head.
but I was asked to unmute, so maybe it's my turn.
Yeah, it's Jan Shepherd's
Sorry.
turn.
Okay, let's, yes.
And
we said
I
it would
know
be
that
in
might have
order.
sounded rude, but because I'm a person that tends to interrupt, I thought it might be useful to remind myself and everyone that we have a process that, and so Judy, I'm not trying to insult you. You know, but actually to verify what Judy said, that my problem is that it opens up too much in my mind and I want to go here and there and everywhere with my thoughts. And so my goal today, and this is going to be also my New Year's resolution, thanks to Karen, who said she wanted to be a cycle breaker. So this is my effort at being a cycle breaker. I have been reflecting with no way to turn it off for at least 3 weeks. It's very disturbing. I can't focus. So, and when I've tried to go through my entire thought process, it hasn't been useful. Okay, so I'm going straight to my point here. I'm a person who believes in God. This is revolutionary for me. I was an atheist for 25 years. So, and my chosen religion is the Baha'i faith, and that's not to make myself superior. See all the things we have to warn people about? Okay, so in order for you to know that I'm not trying to make myself superior, I am going to the superior being, God, who is the same God for every human being on the planet. And I'm reading from a revelation of God's, which is fairly recent, and it's very short, but this is what I'm focusing on now. And here is the word of God through revelation by Baha'u'llah. O Son of Spirit, noble have I created thee, yet thou hast abased thyself. Thou hast abased thyself. Rise then unto that for which thou wast created. Because I believe in God, I believe God created all of us noble. He did not say Jan's the only one. He did not say white people are the only one. He did not say black people are the only one. He said, I created you all noble. Okay, so now my question for myself is, how do I respond to manifest both my nobility and the other person's nobility or the other group's nobility? And that's what I'm going to focus on.
Thank you, Jan. So you're focusing, we're recognizing the nobility of every person with whom we come in contact, if I understand what you said. And we
And
can
somehow I was told, yes.
formulate what that means in terms of nobility. So thank you for your sharing.
And I was asked to unmute again. I don't know why.
No, that was me messing things up.
Okay.
Just ignore me.
Suzanne Young Mercer, if you would. Suzanne?
I want to first say that I had a conversation, another Zoom meeting this week with my previous NAACP branch. I'm from New York. I'm currently in Pennsylvania, but my AAUW branch is in New York, and I'm the diversity chair there. And I met Linda through another Zoom meeting, and I'm happy to be here today. So I think one of the things that we know is got to happen is we need to have more conversations like this with all different types of people who are willing to have these conversations, because only if you're willing to have the conversation can we see the kind of change we're trying to get to. Okay. So that's my one point. And then the other point, to Mr. Wilson's commentary, I think the problem with history is that what we've always learned is white history. What we're missing is the other pieces of history that bring all the other diverse parts of the conversation into view. Because if history only teaches us that Black people started out as slaves, then what we have is that, Black people were slaves, and then we were miraculously given the opportunity to become a part of white history. Black history started before we came to this country. So what history needs to teach us all, and if we were more, is the fact that we have been part of history since the very beginning of history. And when you leave those pieces out, it hurts not only Black people, but it hurts white people, it hurts Latinx people, it hurts Asian people, because we all have a history that has a wealth of information that will make us all be the noble people that I'm sorry, I don't remember her name, that Jan spoke of before. That we are all noble people, and in that nobleness, we need to realize that we all bring something to the table, and as long as people understand that that's the truth, then we don't have these unfortunate divisions where we now have to learn that, we all have value. My comment.
Suzanne, thank you so much. I think, yes, I will just share quickly. Next month is February. It's called Black History Month. At this point, I find myself embarrassed even to call it, to have a Black History Month, because I'm learning there's only one history. And as you said, Suzanne, we've left so many pieces out. It's our common history. We've just had so much missing from it. But hopefully, I'm excited thinking that perhaps we're learning, we're starting to, again, we're making some more progress. The key is for us to keep working and working and working at it. But enough. So Lynn Hunter, you're next.
Yeah, my timing is always terrible. I was bothered by more people like you, the comment in the grocery store. I understand that it might not have bothered other people, but I don't like that "like you" part kind of. So but that was long ago, and here my timing is off again. So, when we talk about diversity, and it came up in our small group, people say, well, diversity is more than just Black and white, because we have Hispanic folks and we have Asian folks but African American folks are the only group that were forced to come here, that were slaves for so long, and the struggle for equality has been different for them, I think, than for any other group. So I think there's something about the Black-white question that's different from other groups. And I do think that is a different situation from all the others. Not that we need to ignore the diversity across the board, but I do think it's different. And you study slavery and you study what has gone on and how the African-American question has been in our history for so long and has been such a struggle. I think that's different. That's all. I don't like you. It puts a category somewhere that I don't like. End of story.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you. Again, we have so many, this richness of perspectives. What a beautiful collective. Karen Hayes, let's hear from you.
Yes, listening to this discussion, I began thinking of how we label ourselves. Why aren't we called Euro-Americans and Hispanics called Hispanic Americans? We call people Afro-Americans, Asian Americans. So why do we not distinguish us as coming from Europe and our background rather than just say we're white? That's just my thought, that having listened to the discussion and the gentleman saying that maybe in Europe, they can't be called Afro-Americans. Are they called Afro-Europeans? So I think maybe the labeling needs to go altogether. Why do we care where people come from? And why do we distinguish some people as being African or Asian? They should be just Americans like we are, or we should be Euro-Americans. And that's my comment.
Okay, well, thank you, Karen. Okay, we haven't heard from, we're gonna pick on someone, select who we haven't heard from yet. Jim Shear.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt, but if that's it, I'm fine with muting myself again, but I got the message to unmute.
Jan, I'm sorry, but we've heard from you, so let's hear from someone else who hasn't. Thank you, Jim. We have to ask you to unmute, Jim.
There you go.
Okay, I guess I had the benefit of a very interesting group this morning. And I think I'll call them out. Clay Wilson made a really poignant remark in our group, and I'm confident he wouldn't mind my sharing, but he talked about being a Black man wearing a mask and going into stores and how he felt. And I think that, really provides an opportunity for us to understand that all things are personal. And if we approach this vile disease of racism as a personal affront to our brothers and sisters, our human family, then that raises the bar. And I think the other thing that came out of our group, which was interesting as well, is just the discussion of how prejudice affects all of us in terms of our culture and our background, and how we interact with others, and how we are trying to get our heads around a history that's been muted in American history. And this is part of the problem that the boomers have, despite living through a generation and actually living during their youth in the civil rights movement. They get to this point in their life and they're still bound by the chains of prejudice and racism. So I think it behooves us to really educate ourselves, but also to address it from the standpoint, this is a personal thing. So I applaud the group for saying, what is your New Year's resolution? And that we all should get on board with addressing this. It is a personal matter, but I think we also have to have some sense of responsibility for it. And actually, really understand the pain and agony that people have had a lifetime of this kind of suffering. And that we need to be vigilant about it and address it in all ways that are within our capacity. And we need to gain the trust of African Americans. And the only way you can do that is through a personal relationship and make that an agenda item. So that was the thing that came to my mind and what I wanted to share this morning on the basis of our group discussion. So thank you, Clay.
I have a response. Thank you for speaking up. My experience is that wearing a mask, I walk into a store like everybody else wearing a mask, and I get a double take. And it's not the first time. Masks are new, but lots of times in the past, the same type of thing has happened. My thought is I'm kind of tired of it. I'm tired of what I'm thinking other people are imagining. The other thing I didn't talk about is walking down the street and someone's sitting in their car, and as I pass by, they lock their car door. Well, that's a funny thing to do, you know? Anyway, thank you for speaking out about that. I believe that in order to change that, folks would have to look inside themselves and recognize what's going on inside themselves. So I hope the responses that we talked about today will help. Another comment about African Americans and Spanish Americans and English Americans and all these little adjectives that we put in front. White people call themselves Spanish American, French American, because they can trace their ancestry back. In many cases, Black people in this country cannot clearly trace their ancestry back. What is starting to happen is with Ancestry and other genealogy systems that look at your DNA, that's starting to change. But right now, people cannot identify as Senegal American, or Gambian American, or Nigerian American. But that may change in the future if people choose to continue distinguishing themselves that way. I guess that's enough for right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I can get a part of this conversation, because I don't have the opportunity to wave hands and all of that to get in part of the conversation.
Sure.
But for this particular continent and for Europe, I think all of the tentacles are a part of colonization. And what I mean by that is that I had an opportunity in my 30s, and I was up at the Carabana in Quebec, and happened to run into this young lady who was of Black persuasion. And I asked her, I said, what do you refer, because, you know, in the United States, I'm referred to as a Black American, African American at that particular time, and, you know, whatever was the highlight of the century. And I asked her, I said, how are you referred to? And she looked at me like I was, you know, from a different planet. She says, I'm Canadian. And I found that to be extremely interesting. So it forced me to go back and do a lot of research and find material that was never available to me in terms of colonization. And so when I started to do the work, I've got a really deep understanding of all the tentacles of colonization and how that impacts this particular soil, this particular continent, and then also how what the impact was in Europe, right? Because colonization is an absolute organizational, how do I put this? It's an absolute organizational program to take, right? To take land, to take peoples, to take whatever, right? And so when you have that, kind of program, it doesn't lend for freedoms. It doesn't lend for acceptance of different cultures. It doesn't lend for prosperity. It doesn't lend for anything. And so we see that that particular organizational platform of colonization is happening on the continent of Africa right now. And so until we understand what colonization is in terms of how those tentacles go in the first place, what is the overall impact, and then how it affects behaviors from the older clientele to the middle clientele to the youthful clientele, we'll never get a grasp on this, right? And I think we saw that in this particular country in just the last 4 years, or just the last election, when you had 50% of the population go in a different direction, right? That most thinking people perceive it as negative. So I think it's extremely important that, number one, it's about education, right? You have to be able to educate yourself and get a complete understanding of what all of this is about, and get away from the labeling of people for whatever you think their makeup is. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. I know it's so wonderful that we're having these finally, we're really getting into some meat. I think it's showing that we are feeling more and more comfortable together, hopefully, and that we are willing to have these conversations. I'm sorry, I know we have 2 hands up, but we're going to have to stop because we have a few just wrap up things. My apologies to you. I will just say, I think if we recognize that we're all gems of inestimable value and we valued each person, that we could do a lot to reach one another and recognize we're part of the same human family. We certainly have a long way to go, and each one of us has something special to add. But I'm so glad and appreciate that each one of you feels comfortable to share what you have, and look forward to us continuing these conversations. So we do have to move along. And
I would like to say something personal to James, because I don't know if he saw my chat. It is possible to find your tribal ancestry there.
Jan, if you would, why don't you do it in the chat? I don't mean to be rude, but we have a time.
I did. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Again, apologies for having to interrupt, but we gave you a time frame. We want to honor that. We do have a few polling questions we'd like you to answer, and I'm going to put those up. They're going to be anonymous. Again, recognizing. Okay, you put them up, Linda. Okay, I'll just read them. Put them down. I'm going to read them from something else. Okay, these are the polling questions. 1, did you know what a microaggression is before this discussion? Did you know what a microaggression was before this discussion? 2, did you think about microaggressions and their impact prior to this session? 3, I now have tools to help me avoid committing microaggressions. 4, I now have tools for responding to microaggressions that I observe. And 5, I now have tools for responding to microaggressions that are directed at me.
They were up and then they disappeared.
Yeah, they're coming back.
Okay, sorry.
You ready, Jackie?
Yes. So what is it? Relaunch? What are you going to do?
Yep.
There we go. Okay. So if you all would answer those, they are anonymous. In a couple brief moments, Linda will give us the results of your answers. Okay, we're almost done. Okay, I'd say we have it.
And here are the results.
Okay, so here we have it. Did you know what a microaggression was prior to this discussion? We had 64% that said yes, 36% no. Do you think about microaggressions? Did you think about microaggressions and their impact prior to this session? 67% said yes, 33% no. I now have tools to help me avoid committing microaggressions. 91% said yes, 9% no. I now have tools for responding to microaggressions that I observe. 91% yes, 9% no. I now have tools for responding to microaggressions that are directed at me. 85% yes, 6% no, 9% I've not experienced microaggressions directed at me. So thank you all for sharing that. I think we see this was quite a rich discussion. We've learned a lot. Again, apologies for those who couldn't speak again. But we're seeing more and more of us have things we want to discuss, and that's so encouraging that we're on the right track. We're bringing people together so that we can address this pollution of racism that we've all been breathing in for so long. So just before, one of the questions that did come up, and I am going to ask, you might consider, although maybe we've been practicing a little bit, here are the polling questions. You might want to think about for next time. The question has come up. You might probably have more answers now. Now that we're more sensitized, how do we balance the fear of making a mistake with the action of reaching out for an authentic connection? We've talked a lot about it, but I know these are questions that come up. Now that we're more sensitized, how do we balance the fear of making a mistake with the action of reaching out for an authentic connection? And so we do want to thank you all for attending. We are going to be meeting again next month. And there we go. We meet the fourth Wednesday of the month. And our next topic is going to be Confederate monuments. So you'll be receiving information on a preparatory material, as we always send. But I will ask, if you would, two things. One, as we mentioned, if you have some books that are not on the great reads on race that you'd like to recommend to us, please send your suggestions here to our email site. And also, if you have some topics that you think that the diversity committee should consider for these discussions, please also email us with that information. So we really, we do again appreciate your being here and truly appreciate the honesty with which you've spoken from your hearts, the willingness to be open and to share your feelings, your fears, your experiences. It's really a privilege and an honor to be in your company and be able to share these things together as we all walk along, wanting to do better, wanting to embrace one another, looking for how we can be better. So thank you all. We look forward to next time. Thank you. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.